Funding for New Mexico in Focus is provided by viewers like you.
This week on New Mexico in Focus, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of the press. As we did last year over 4th of July week, we dive into what's gone wrong and what could fix it in New Mexico's news landscape.
Can we save this? Can we make a go of it?
I want to see more people participate in democracy.
And the dangerous secrets of northern New Mexico. One reporter tells us how she unmasked the illegal work of scientists and doctors in Los Alamos from more than 30 years ago. New Mexico in Focus starts now. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm executive producer Jeff Proctor. As New Mexicans join the rest of the country celebrating Independence Day this week, we wanted to mark the holiday by checking the pulse of the Fourth Estate. This is our second assessment of New Mexico's media ecosystem. We started this tradition last 4th of July, and quite a bit has changed. In 2023, we highlighted the bylines and editorial staff of local publications. This year, we'll examine who owns what, ideas to green up so-called news deserts, and what these and other trends mean for the future of the news business. At a time when more than 2 publications close every week across the United States, 2 New Mexico media companies have grown. Control P Publishing has expanded its reach by creating CityDesk ABQ, and El Rito Media Group purchased 3 local New Mexico newspapers from Gannett, bringing the company's total to 5. In the second half of our program, I'll speak with leaders at both companies about how they're working to grow trust among readers, despite misgivings about the politics behind Control P and El Rito. But that's not our only focus tonight. Later in the show, we'll take a step away from the broader state of our media landscape to speak with an investigative reporter specifically about her work covering New Mexico's nuclear legacy and its future. Our Laura Paskus sits with Alicia Inez Guzman of Searchlight New Mexico to discuss her national award-winning story that uncovered decades-old secrets at Los Alamos National Laboratory. That's in less than 20 minutes. But we'll begin with the lens a bit wider. In this first segment, we hear from 3 people who are working to fund local news organizations. Correspondent Gwyneth Doland, who happens to be central in these efforts through her role as a UNM professor of journalism practice, spoke with Rashad Mahmoud of the New Mexico Local News Fund, Christina Shih from Press Forward, and retired UNM professor Michael Marcotte. They talked about the specific challenges of getting news to all New Mexicans, the rise of nonprofit media, what's gone wrong to create vast news deserts, and what's being done to prioritize journalism as a public good instead of a commodity.
My guests today are Christina Shih, Associate Director of Press Forward, Rashad Mahmoud, the Executive Director of the New Mexico Local News Fund, and Michael Marcotte is a news consultant who works with NPR and public broadcasting stations around the country. He's also a recently retired professor of journalism here at UNM. Thank you all 3 for being with us. Christina, I'd like to start with you. Who are these people who want to spend $500 million on news, and why do they think it's such a big priority?
So Press Forward is a national movement to reimagine local news. And it was started by national funders like the MacArthur Foundation and Knight Foundation. And now we have 62 funders in our coalition who are really thinking about the importance of local news across the country. About half of these funders are local community foundations and local foundations. And I think all of us, when we look at the crisis of local news, we see a sense of urgency. There are over 3 million people across the country who do not have single access to a single source of local news. They live in what we call news deserts. And there are places across the country where local newspapers are closing at a rate of 2 per week. And in places where we do have these newspapers, what we're seeing is that many are struggling to survive. Many are facing layoffs. They are trying to report and serve the public on very shoestring budgets. So what we have is this crisis, and the impact on our civic health is staggering. When we find that a community does not have access to a local news organization, civic engagement and voting rates drop. There's also a cost that's passed down to residents. Cities without local news information see an increase in government costs. And then when we think about the social bonds that connect our communities together, especially at the local level, we become even more divided in our lives and in our opinions. So Press Forward is really a national movement, a national conversation to address this issue and begin helping many funders, from foundations to individuals, to see that we all have a part to play in rebuilding local news.
Yeah, and Christina, what you just said about news deserts, I think is especially true here in New Mexico. Mike Marcotte, you've been looking at the ecosystem here in New Mexico for a while. What does this situation that Christina described look like on the ground here?
Well, New Mexico is just a microcosm of the country. We're not immune to the economic and technological forces that are totally disrupting local journalism. We can point to the locally family-owned Albuquerque Journal, the family-owned Santa Fe New Mexican, and count our lucky stars. At least we have that sort of level of investment. But I mean, these are ad-supported for-profit enterprises, clearly shaving costs. We measure our local news force in the hundreds, not the thousands. And we're going to proceed with some mapping projects to get a better handle on that. But I mean, we are small to begin with, and we're getting smaller. And we're trying to save what we have. And with friends like Rashad and Christina, we're trying to reinvent the local news ecosystem, but it's a heavy lift.
Yeah. And Rashad, at the New Mexico Local News Fund, you've been working on this for 6 years. In fact, we should say that one of your oldest projects is the Local News Fellowship and Internship Program that Mike and I have worked on. And in fact, we have one of these interns working with us here in the studio today.
That's great.
But big picture, what kind of impact are you hoping that Press Forward's big, presence on the scene is going to have on local news in New Mexico?
Thank you so much, Gwyneth. So we've been working, as you said, for a number of years to support the local news ecosystem here. We have programs like the Fellowship Program. We have an accelerator program to help existing news outlets. We ran an incubator program last year. But the biggest strength, I think, of Press Forward is that, there's financial support. We're super grateful. We received, Press Forward New Mexico received $250,000 earlier this year from Press Forward National. But more importantly, it's about sort of what Christina talked about getting that message out there and raising awareness that this is an important challenge that affects all of us, whether you live in a news desert or not. It should be something that you care about and that everyone considers supporting. With the Press Forward funds, what we're going to do is sort of really help create a baseline of knowledge so that our work in the next 4 or 5 years can be really informed by data, and we can measure the progress that we make. We're going to launch a mapping project that Mike alluded to that's going to help really dive into how does each community in New Mexico get access to local news. It's also going to support, so we're likely going to do some polling to figure out in more detail about New Mexicans' attitudes toward local news, how they get it, do they trust it, who are the trusted sources of local news in different communities, et cetera. And so, and it's also allowed us to bring a lot of community foundations in as partners. We've been in talks with many community foundations in New Mexico for a number of years, and having this national support from Press Forward really helped us make the case for them to finally get on board and officially join us as part of Press Forward New Mexico.
And we heard from Christina why community foundations are invested in this work, because it affects all the other things that they're working on. Christina, obviously a lot of the change that we're talking about that's happened in the news industry, we've lost hundreds of thousands of jobs in the industry. We're losing papers, as you said, they're dropping like flies. A lot of this change has been due to forces that are kind of beyond our control. Digital disruption, the internet really kind of crashed the system of selling newspapers and big ads in them. Also, it has to be said that many news organizations failed to recognize this and adapt and change quickly enough. But before joining Press Forward, you were working at organizations that tried to help news make money, working on the revenue side, trying to figure out what could be done. What did you learn from that experience? What's working?
Yes. So I worked in local news for about 10 years, from a hometown paper, a hometown news organization in San Diego, up to the national level, and seeing our field and peers trying to learn from one another, figure out how to adapt and pivot the business model. We have seen the rise in nonprofit news. We've seen the rise in digital startups. We've also seen the rise of organizations that are putting their communities first and experimenting with things like donations and membership models. We've also seen important infrastructure organizations like the New Mexico Local News Fund that are serving the news organizations across the state with helping them with talent and skills and experimentation, and even some of the tools that they need to be able to operate so they can be on the front lines and reporting and service for their communities. So as the field has been experimenting and innovating for the last 10, 15 years, we have a chance to build off of that and build off of that momentum and get the philanthropic side organized, coordinated to be able to identify the successes, identify the models that are working, support them, and even scale them across the country too.
Can you give me just one or two examples of things that are happening outside of New Mexico that maybe we haven't heard of, we don't know about, but that are glimmers of hope?
Yeah, well, so even in some of the neighbor states, we have seen emerging models like SMS text messaging. This is a chance for us to loosen the definitions of what we might think a newspaper might look like and think about how should we receive news and information in a way that makes sense for the languages, the culture that we're in, or even our daily habits and routines. So we're seeing a lot of interesting emerging news organizations that are using WhatsApp, SMS text messaging, and having this close one-to-one relationship with their audience, where they're getting information about housing, public health, even where to go to even access information about bills and utilities. This is everyday information that we all need to be able to make decisions in our day-to-day lives that are just being delivered right to our phones. So we are seeing that in Arizona, Connecticut. We're seeing that in Detroit with Outlier. We're seeing that in New York with Documented. So we're seeing this experimentation pop up in different places.
And Rashad, let me come back, let me go to you, Mike. You've been consulting with news organizations like NPR, but also, public media all over the country. What are some of the challenges? What's the difference between the challenges you see NPR having and the challenges in places like Deming, Las Cruces, Farmington, places where Gannett, the nation's largest newspaper chain, used to be a dominant force and has now just shed these newspapers, some of them closed, some floundering, some, not. But what's the difference there?
Well, yeah, interesting. Some similarities and some differences for sure. One thing, you might be comparing for-profit newsrooms to nonprofit newsrooms. But, honestly, that's not a significant difference anymore because both sectors are suffering losses. Losses of, corporate dollars, whether it's advertising or underwriting, and a drop in audience, especially because of the plethora of digital sources, that are not local. And then having said that, I would say I think the drift toward nonprofit newsrooms is really notable and promising. Because what we're really concerned about here is not news as commodity, but news as public service, right? Public interest information that is essential. And I say nonprofits, are important here because they prioritize the service aspect of their news. Whereas for-profits, they're trying to make a dollar, God bless them, and are not always prioritizing public interest, journalism. And Gannett's a great, case point there. they're not making dollars, so they are downsizing, and now shedding newspapers, as we know.
Christina, we have here an equity problem, right? Less than 20% of people who make less than $50,000 a year pay for news, but nearly half of the wealthy do. And, kind of the model Mike was just talking about is, we think about the Washington Post, the New York Times, CBS, NBC, the biggest media organizations in this country are for profit. And big cities, wealthy areas, they have more news, right? We're seeing this, places in the country where there's less money have less news or no news, right? So what can Press Forward do to make sure that people with less money, regions of the country with less money, still get the news that's important to them? What's Press Forward doing in terms of equity?
Yes. So first, Press Forward is, again, going back to this idea of a national conversation and national movement. We are galvanizing a group of funders and individuals and philanthropists who truly believe local news is a public good. And we need to pay for it like we pay for our libraries, our arts, and our cultural institutions and our hospitals. It is a tenet of the civic fabric that upholds our community. News and information binds us all together. That being said, there are also a lot of experimentations around public policy that are seeing this as there are policies that are enabling the support and infrastructure of local news to allow for people in all communities, whether they can pay for it, whether they have access to internet and broadband, whether they live in rural communities, to still have access to that news and information. We're seeing this in different states. We're seeing it investing in talent pipelines so people can also make a living going into this field. It is really an all of the above solution, and Press Forward is really shifting the conversation and shifting the culture and the long-term views around how we as a public should be supporting journalism and what our various roles are in this collective mission.
And Rashad, there's a lot that's familiar to us in what Christina just said, right? There was a lot that we recognize here. One of the things that I think that's really interesting about especially the nonprofit sector here is that's where we've seen growth, right? We see Source New Mexico, Searchlight, New Mexico in Depth, and now Albuquerque City Desk a little bit. What do you think New Mexico is doing that has a lot of potential to grow?
Sure. I think New Mexico has a few strengths as a local news ecosystem that it's important to recognize that may not be obvious. One is that, in general, people in the news business are just incredibly supportive of each other, which is, you would think would be common everywhere, but I've been on a few interesting calls with other places where, people are just very much out for themselves. And we have a very collaborative mindset here. Everyone works really well together, wants to see everyone else succeed, which is, I think, so important. Another thing is the ownership issue that we hinted at earlier. We are super fortunate that the vast majority of local news sources in New Mexico now are locally owned or part of very small chains. And so thanks to the Gannett's recent sale of 4 of its New Mexico newspapers. And so that's an incredible opportunity for reinvestment and support. And it makes policy even easier, I think, right? One thing that Christina hinted at was, we've been really fortunate to receive some state support for our local news fellowship program run out of UNM. Senator Wirth put some money in the budget last year, and then this year Senator Steinbord supported it, and we're in talks with to hopefully even expand that support going forward. But more importantly, I think it's just so much easier to support local news when it's really someone in your community doing the work. The money, when you support an organization, either a nonprofit or a for-profit, is staying in New Mexico. And so, I'm just sort of cautiously optimistic, I would say. The other strength is we've seen a lot of new startups, actually, just in recent years here in New Mexico, which you might not know about because they're very local community focused. There's Downtown Albuquerque News here in Albuquerque. There's Boomtown in Los Alamos, which just got started. The Cloudcroft Reader just got started in Cloudcroft, has been doing amazing fire coverage. Obviously CityDesk, which we've talked about before. And so, there are people sort of taking up this mantle, looking around at their communities and saying, hey, what can I do to make sure that this critical need is met? If you are one of those people listening right now, feel free to get in touch. I'd love to talk to you. We'd love to support more local news outlets. But yeah, I think we have a lot of strengths.
Let me ask you, Christina, we have just a few seconds left here. What are you asking of the public? What does our audience, what is their role? What can they do?
One, I think if you can support local news, be able to just, if you're able to make a donation or even get a subscription, that definitely support local news, engage with your local news organization, and continue spreading the word that this is essential. We do just need news and information to figure out what to do for the weekend, how to make decisions in, upcoming, elections. And so this is information that we all need. And so if we're able to, again, shift the national and public view around how essential local news is to our communities, I think we can see the long-term impact of that for years to come.
Christina, Rashad, and Mike, thank you very much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Gwyneth.
Thank you.
I want to see more people participate in democracy, and I really have always been a romantic for these local small town stories. I grew up in a small town, and when those papers are gone, like these towns, they lose their identity, they lose their sense of connection, because there's nothing to tell everybody what binds us together anymore.
That interview with Pat Davis and Rich Connor will air in less than 20 minutes. At Searchlight, New Mexico, investigative reporter Alicia Inez Guzman covers New Mexico's nuclear legacy and future, and the new Cold War. In an in-depth conversation with Hourland senior producer Laura Paskus, Guzman talks about her award-winning story, Buried Secrets, Poisoned Bodies, the illegal autopsies scientists at Los Alamos National Laboratory and doctors at the Los Alamos Medical Center performed on people for over 35 years, and the unique challenges of being a reporter on the 21st century atomic beat.
Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, and congratulations on your recent national award.
Thank you.
So I'm sure that most people in our audience are familiar with your work, but would you just describe your beat for us?
Sure, yeah. So for the last year at Searchlight, New Mexico, I've been covering nuclear issues. So for me, what that includes is everything from uranium mining to the production of nuclear weapons to the storage of nuclear weapons to the storage of waste from the production of nuclear weapons. So it's really the full cycle, cradle to grave.
Yeah. Well, I am such a huge fan of your work and what you do. I really appreciate it, and I'm super excited that you're here today.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk briefly about Buried Secrets, Poisoned Bodies, which published in December is the story that you won the Molly Award for. What started you on the path to reporting that particular story?
That story really drove me crazy. And the reason why was because I heard from a source that there was a woman from Truchas, where I'm from, where I'm born and raised, that had the most plutonium in her body from the Trinity detonation in 1945. And of course, when I heard that, I thought, if that person is from Truchas, I must know them, or I must know their family, or we're related, or we're neighbors. There's so few people in Truchas, and so it really put me on this path to search for her and to ultimately find her and her family. And lo and behold, yes, I did know her family, and we were neighbors, and I've known them since I was a child. So it was just a really offhand tip from a source in an airplane coming back from DC. And then I heard it again, that same tip from a different source down by the Trinity site by White Sands. And so I thought, okay, well, I've heard it twice, and that's really what put me on this path. And I think it took me 6 months ultimately to figure out who she was and what her story was, and how her story had really been papered over, I think, in many ways.
So that story is also about illegal autopsies. Who performed them, on who, and why?
So basically, the reason that we knew she had plutonium in her body was because she had been one of about 2,000 people who had been illegally autopsied as part of a study called the Human Tissue Analysis Program. And there were several hundred people here in New Mexico who were subject to that study, but it really began in the late 1950s when scientists at Los Alamos National Laboratory were trying to understand how plutonium impacted the body. And so in Los Alamos, a person died from plutonium exposure, extreme plutonium exposure, and he was the first in this study. And so they autopsied his body without the informed consent from next of kin, and that was in 1959. And that began this program in conjunction between Los Alamos National Laboratory and Los Alamos Medical Center. And so they the chief of staff would collaborate with the Los Alamos National Laboratory. And if somebody died at the medical center and there could be some need for an autopsy, then they would perform it and basically look at and take out several different organs, including liver, lungs, spleen, in some cases vertebrae and bone, in men, gonads. So it was a horrific study, and it took place for about 35 years. And it was litigated, so we do know that at least there was some small measure of justice, and I say that in a way that I know it's really not justice at all, but it was settled back in 2010 after more than 10 years of litigation.
So there was this lawsuit and settlement. Was there any kind of apology, admission of how incredibly wrong that is? Like a healing process, anything like that?
I don't think that there really was a healing process, to be quite honest. You know, there were probably 10 people listed on the lawsuit. And, you know, from the story that I wrote, what I came to find out is this woman had been illegally autopsied. She had the most plutonium in her body than any other person who was autopsied in this study who was not a worker. And her family didn't know about the lawsuit. They were never contacted, or if they were, they send out letters and, make newspaper announcements, but they never got any of that. And so they didn't know until I came to them and said, hey, I believe, I'm 90% sure that this woman is your grandmother, but with your help, I would like to prove it. So they didn't even know what happened. And so, I don't think for a lot of people, even who did know what happened, there was any measure of resolution. And specifically in this case, there was no knowledge about it until 6 months ago, really, and she died in 1972.
Again, thank you for your reporting on this. So I feel like when I first moved to New Mexico almost 30 years ago, the mainstream newspapers did cover the labs to some extent. Mm-hmm. You would see news about the labs. Not so much anymore. You're basically the only reporter who covers Los Alamos with consistency and sort of investigative chops.
It's interesting that you note that because, last summer there was this group of atomic reporters that got together, and there are very few across the U.S. even, and we noted that in our group. But I think part of it is that once the Cold War ended, in the late 80s, and once pit production largely ended at Rocky Flats in Colorado, I think the watchdogs slowly kind of disappeared into the mist. And now, fast forward, we're producing plutonium pits at Los Alamos National Laboratory at an industrial scale in a way that's never been done in Los Alamos. Yes, it's been done in Rocky Flats, but this is a real feat. And so I think that the quietude, perhaps, in the journalism community was a result of kind of, relative quietude in terms of pit production. They made a few here and there, maybe 30 over a 30-year period, but now the goal is to make 30 in 1 year at Los Alamos National Laboratory. And so it's kind of, now I think people are starting to wake up that the Cold War, the first Cold War ended, we're entering into a second Cold War, and this one potentially could be more dangerous. And I think that's, what I'm starting to think about now is, we're barreling into a new Cold War, and we have not reckoned with the implications of the last one. And so even though I'm looking forward and, into the future about what potential stories I could write about pit production, etc. And plutonium pits, by the way, are the cores that detonate every nuclear weapon. But I'm also thinking about the past and all the things that we haven't dealt with from the past, including these stories about, this woman from Truchas.
Yeah. Are there particular challenges that are unique to your beat and working with the lab?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Los Alamos is a place built on secrets and secrecy. And so there's this, in every beat, there's a fear of retaliation, when you talk to sources. But this beat has the added layer that if you work at the lab, you very likely have a Q clearance, which is a high security federal clearance. And so you are beholden in many ways in a way that's even more challenging than, say, being a whistleblower at, at a private entity or something like that. So I think, so there's the secrecy aspect. Then there is the aspect of trying to get records from the federal government. And so, the Freedom of Information Act affords us to be able to get records, but when you put in a FOIA for the Department of Energy, I've heard people wait 9-10 years to get those records back. And so, I could be 100 and still waiting for a FOIA. So I think that that's another challenge. Those two aspects are very much challenges, but there is a rich record historically. And so I always look to what that record is historically to help me figure out how to report on what, an issue that may be taking place in the present. So a lot of my work does integrate past records that are already available. I just have to really dig for them and find the right archives for them.
Yeah. So some of the reporting that has been done, or that does show up in the mainstream newspapers, tends to focus on like when the federal government issues like a safety report, or certainly there's the occasional pollution story, very rarely labor issues, and almost never moral implications of building weapons of mass destruction. Why do you think we skirt that issue?
It is, and I think about this too, it is so hard for people to talk about it, right? Because, even with our congressional delegation, on the one hand, they are fighting for Radiation Exposure Compensation Act for our, the folks who were the first victims of the Trinity site detonation, and for uranium miners post-1971. But on the other hand, they are pro making nuclear weapons now because of the jobs, right? And I think that people always get caught up in the kind of economic benefits question of the whole thing. And, I hear all the time folks tell me, if the lab weren't around, Espanola, the surrounding communities wouldn't exist. They would just be like tumbleweeds, totally rolling into the horizon. And so, I think that the economic argument holds a lot of sway in eclipsing the moral argument is, largely what it comes down to. And when I talk to sources, they'll say something like, yes, it's been a really good job for me, but my tío, up in Cordova and my cousin over there, both of them got cancer and died. And so people will, in the same breath, talk about the good jobs and also, environmental and health harms. And that's become, I think, kind of baked into the culture around the lab, is that you accept the trade-offs. And that, to me, is also part of this moral argument around this issue, is that there is a trade-off and you have to accept it, and that, it really centers around an issue of consent. And the lab arrived, through eminent domain. The communities surrounding did not consent. And now, ever since, there's been this retroactive attempt to get people to consent through good jobs. And what it's left us with is this kind of nebulous moral murkiness that we can't quite, that people are too afraid to really navigate in a way. And so when I write about it, I acknowledge that I'm privileged to be able to say the things that other people can't say, because maybe some people feel like they don't have the power or the voice to do that. And so I'm honored and humbled to do that too. And sometimes, it's even hard for me.
Yeah. So last year we had Mariah Gomez on the show to talk about her book and nuclear colonialism. How do you feel, or did Los Alamos set the stage for New Mexico to keep?
I think so. I mean, I think that, part of the argument is this kind of history of extraction. And I think that's built into all eras of colonialism. And, I think about the great Latin American journalist Eduardo Galeano, who talked about kind of extraction in Latin America and how that made kind of, corporate conglomerates wealthy elsewhere. And that, to me, is kind of what we're talking about here, is that, New Mexico has been land rich, cash poor. And so, a lot of our resources are to be extracted. We have oil and gas, we have uranium, we have labor. That is a resource to be extracted as well. And I think that, kind of in the late capitalist model that we're in, yes, this is kind of an extension of colonization, because it means that, our state will continue to be poor, even though we continue to be, to make money or to provide the labor, the resources for the federal government to, reap, from the arms race, right? And so I think that, yes, this is an extension of colonization. It is nuclear colonialism, and it will continue to be, throughout the arms race, and again, we're in another arms race.
So without scooping yourself, what can we look forward to reading from you in the coming months or year?
So I'm gonna, I've been really focused on Los Alamos National Laboratory for the last year on and off, but I'm gonna start panning around the state, hoping to do some more uranium mining coverage, because as you may know, we're not really taking uranium from Russia anymore. And so that kind of puts pressure on us. I'm going to really think through that issue. And then I'm trying to think. And then I'll probably come back to Los Alamos and do some coverage. I keep coming back to plutonium, so I think I'll always come back as long as we're, producing plutonium pits. There's always going to be something to write about.
Well, again, thank you for your work. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks to Laura and to Alicia for sharing her work with us. Now, because we chose to run that interview this week, in an episode focused on ownership and shifting trends in New Mexico's news industry, we want to make it clear that Laura and Alicia had been trying to find a time to talk for a year. Alicia was here to talk about her reporting, not necessarily where it's published, but good fortune for us to be able to highlight some truly singular journalism in this episode. Between the two growing media companies, Control P Publishing and El Rito Media Group, they own 10 news organizations around the state, from Espanola to Carlsbad. Most of them are print newspapers, which continue to struggle both on the financial and readership sides. So we wanted to understand why the companies, whose owners are well-known political figures, are running around buying up fish wrappers at a time when local news is teetering. Pat Davis is the owner and publisher of Control P. He's also the recently departed Democratic president of the Albuquerque City Council, and he once started a progressive advocacy organization that's still around today. Rich Connor edits El Rito's 5 newspapers. He's an investor in the company too, and his business partners include Ryan Cangigliosi, a former chairman of the New Mexico Republican Party, and oil baron Harvey Yates, a one-time Republican National Committee man. We talked about flagging trust in media, why readers should trust overtly partisan ownership, and whether Davis's or Connor's goal is to actually make money. Here's that conversation. Pat, Rich, thanks to both you guys for joining me on New Mexico in Focus.
It's great to be back.
Great to be here.
Cool. Pat, I'm going to start with you, and I think I asked you a version of this question when we did this last year. Yeah. What is wrong with you that you have now bought not 1 but 4 newspapers of all things?
Well, they're cheap, which is sort of the piece. Says the former politician in me, like I still have this romantic idea that especially in small communities, there's a way to plug into local decisions, like being the city councilor in Albuquerque and sitting on the dais and having just the same 6 or 7 people come down every week really does make you feel disconnected from what's happening in the city and that there's such a big opportunity. I want to see more people participate in democracy, and I really have always been a romantic for these local small town stories. I grew up in a small town, and when those papers are gone, like these towns, they lose their identity, they lose their central connection because there's nothing to tell everybody what binds us together anymore. So it's a romantic, chaotic adventure that is not a for-profit endeavor, but it is really about storytelling, I think.
Gotcha, thank you. It's going to pain me to say this as someone who grew up as a journalist in newspapers and still loves them very, very much, but a recent study from the Reuters Institute found that nearly half of folks got their news from newspapers in 2013. That number was down to 16% last year. And the trends all show that basically no one under 50 reads newspapers and is never going to read newspapers. So Rich, I want to ask you, what is El Rito doing to make the legacy papers that y'all have bought relevant for younger New Mexicans?
Well, we've got a really interesting dichotomy that's going to be create an even wider gap in the way our papers are read with the acquisition of the papers in Alamogordo, Ruidoso, and Carlsbad. The first paper that the El Rito investors bought, and I'm an investor now, I wasn't then, in Espanola, the Rio Grande Sun. We sell 5,000 papers every Wednesday, single copy.
They're gone before you can get them off the printing press.
And we have 900 that are mailed. So I don't know of any place in the country that's like that, where you have that kind of brand loyalty. So that's totally different. And yeah, the people are older, but we have, hawkers right outside our door, and people of all ages and all walks of life drive up or walk up and buy a paper. We went from 75 cents to $1. We didn't lose a reader. That's unheard of. So that is really an outlier in the business, the Rio Grande Sun. Great readers, great loyalty. When you get to the other papers we own, Artesia and the papers I mentioned that we just bought from Gannett, very low readership in print, but very high online.
Okay.
And the demographic is a little bit more diverse than you might think, more women than men, and we get some people under 50. And we're new into the papers we just bought, but the stuff we've looked at has been pretty interesting in that regard. But there's those papers that we have purchased had virtually no local news. So that's one of the things that attracted us to this. That's what we're going to be good at, and we hope we'll build some readership. We think we'll build some print readership, but most of it will continue to be online.
I want to stay with you for a moment and talk strategy. Is El Rito trying to make a profit with these newspapers that y'all have bought, or is there some other motivation, kind of along the lines of what Pat was just saying?
No, that is a goal. It's not the priority. The first priority in buying the Rio Grande Sun was, and the original investors, if they had a mission, and they really didn't have a statement or anything, it was let's create an experiment to see if a local newspaper can be saved, and that community journalism can remain alive. That's not to imply that the Rio Grande Sun was going out of business, but clearly these smaller papers are endangered, and so that was the number one priority. Can we save this? Can we make a go of it? I'll be held to this now, but we will be profitable with the addition of these 3 Gannett papers. They were highly profitable, believe it or not, which flies in the face of what we all know. No local news, really no employees, no full-time employees, no salespeople, and yet all 3 of them were very profitable.
Gotcha. Rich, the ownership group at El Rito includes Ryan Cangigliosi, who of course is a former Republican State Party chair, Harvey Yates, who is a former Republican National Committee man. I'm interested in why would the company miss an opportunity to shape perception through the news in a way that fits the ownership's agenda?
Well, that's a great question. We have 10 investors. The lead investor is Harvey Yates. He sees the paper the same time our readers see it. He's never been involved in a news decision or an editorial decision. So Ryan, I've met Ryan twice. So the investors really, they're not involved. That was one of the reasons that I agreed to come here in the first place was I've been the publisher of a number of newspapers and the editor of one, started as a reporter, and have had my own company for a long time, over 20 years. So, what I told the group was, I'm not used to having a boss. I haven't had one for a long time. I wasn't very good at being an employee when I had a boss. So I have to run the newspapers. And if you'd let me do that, we'll be fine. And it's really been amazing. We have a politician, state rep, Joseph Sanchez. He was an investor. He just sold his investment. Believe it or not, he got someone to buy it. Because he's going to do some other things, and he felt he might have a conflict. So we've really been lucky in that regard, and people immediately jumped onto the Republican Party chairs and thought we were going to have this agenda. The only agenda we've had in that regard is to try to bring what I would call some balance to these papers. And so in the North, in Espanola, most of the stuff that was written you'd say was left-leaning. In Artesia, it was right-leaning. And what I choose the stuff that's on the editorial pages, and I get feedback on it, but and I look to try to get balance.
With Control P, kind of broadly speaking, obviously you are the owner. Obviously you're making business decisions, but I have seen your byline on stories at City Desk ABQ, including on some big stories. So what are folks to make of your role? Are you what we used to think of as the publisher? Are you the owner? Are you looking to get into the journalism game? I could advise you against doing that.
I could advise me against it too.
So what's your role?
Yeah, my role is simply, I'm trying to put all these pieces together. But when we picked up the smaller papers in Sandoval County, in the Sandoval Signpost or Corrales Comment or the Independent, as Rich said, they had a half-time person or a full-time person. And so we all sort of have chipped in a time or two to cover a city council meeting. When we launched City Desk, we were looking for staff. Somebody had to cover that meeting, and so I step in and do it, but we're clear about who I am. I get edited like everybody else. And the few times I've done it, we've done it as a columnist role, where it's clear that I'm writing from my perspective and doing that. But I haven't written, I think, since April, and that's our long-term goal. But in these startup papers, when it used to be an editor who was the cook and bottle washer and printer and layout and driver, building a team to take on all those roles has been really hard. And sometimes I step in to help. But I still get edited just like everybody else.
Okay, gotcha. Just sticking with this theme for a moment, Rich, I want to go back to you. And I appreciate what you told me earlier about the firewalls you feel like are in place. But do you feel like the reporters and editors working at your newspapers would, for example, feel comfortable in critical coverage of, say, the oil and gas industry, given Harvey Yates's job and stature in that business?
It's a great question. In Carlsbad, we have a reporter by the name of Adrian Hedden. His beat with Gannett was the environment, and obviously oil and gas falls under that. Artesia just celebrated 100 years of the first major well in New Mexico. Called Illinois number 3. It was drilled by Harvey Yates's grandfather. Adrian covered that. There was a big dinner. There was a weekend celebration. He covered that. No one by the name of Yates saw any of those stories before they appeared. And what I've told him is it's going to be more pressure to make certain that that he comes across as being fair. It's a very controversial subject, obviously. It's very hard to be right, if you will. And one of the things that he said that we hope we can help with is the environmental climate change people are very easy to access. They call them, they write them, they call them right back. He says the oil and gas people aren't. So
I can relate to that.
That's true.
And so one of the things we've done is when we meet some oil and gas people, they helped sponsor a special publication we did. We've said, hey, our reporter that covers this says you don't call him back. You got to call him back. And it puts more pressure, I would say, on that one reporter. But what Pat just said about these papers is there's a couple things. It's hard to find people. You have all these journalists that have been laid off in the last 5 years, and you run ads. It's very difficult to find. I'm not just talking about good people that want to work at a newspaper anymore. Can you blame them when they got the statistics like you have? And so everybody at these smaller papers, and Carlsbad and Alamogordo are going to be bigger, but everybody's got to be willing to do virtually everything. Yeah. I've covered a couple of city council meetings up in Espanola. I haven't been a reporter for 40 years. I said, I've got to go over there. And someone said, no, you can cover them online. I'm like, you can?
You went though, didn't you, Rich?
I did.
I'll bet you did.
Pen and paper in hand, yeah.
I also might have been sitting at home too when I went there. You got to be willing to do everything at these papers if you are committed to making them work and being personally involved in them and letting the public know that that's what you're willing to do to give them hopefully a good newspaper.
Okay, we're about out of time. I'm going to give you guys about 45 seconds apiece for this one, and I want to return to that Reuters Institute study for this last question. It found that overall trust in news in the U.S. is at 32%. That's an all-time low. Pat, I'll go to you first. Why should readers trust Control P stories? What are you doing to work on the trust problem?
Says the recovering politician, like 33% approval rating is pretty good from the job I just left. So I'll take that.
Fair.
But here, really what we're looking at, kudos to the local news fund, UNM Journalism School and NMSU's Journalism School. They've placed 2 interns and fellows with us now. One of them just graduated, turned into a full-time reporter. These kind of local efforts are trying to build the pipeline of New Mexico journalists who understand and grew up here and come back that want to work at the Independent in Edgewood, where Lily McCall was, now at City Desk. We're reinvesting in New Mexico, and I think that's what you really have to see. These ghost papers where Gannett had a banner, but the same story ran in Farmington and Carlsbad and Ruidoso and got all the names wrong and the maps wrong. That is as much about distrust as anything else. Look in your local paper and see that they're covering something local, and then pick up the phone and call their office and ask, how do I get a subscription? Go online and see if someone really calls you back. I think more and more you'll find that a New Mexican is calling you back in these papers that didn't used to be that.
Okay. Rich, what's El Rito doing to communicate with readers the strategies you guys are using to improve trust? We're obviously in the gutter where this is concerned. How are you all tackling that problem?
Well, with the 3 new papers in particular, we will be forming, next week we've owned the paper since June 5th. We have been working with Gannett, basically producing the same papers they were. We've added local coverage already. We were unfortunately aided by the fire in Ruidoso, obviously. But we did a great job of covering that. But we will next week, we will be totally divorced from Gannett.
Congratulations.
And I got to try to be political and not respond, okay? We will be announcing that we are going to create advisory committees in each of those 3 communities, Alamogordo, Ruidoso, Carlsbad. And people will write us. I've done this before. They'll say, I want to be on the committee. And we'll meet with them probably initially every couple of weeks and say, this is your newspaper. This isn't our paper. These newspapers belong to the community. We are public trust, and we want you to tell us whether we're doing a good job, a bad job, and how we can do better. And I've had success with this before. So that's the major thing we're doing, as well as we've done this in Artesia and in Espanola. Invite people to write, take photos, we'll publish them. Newspapers, I've done this a long time. They're great at having rules that fit them, that don't fit the community, and are horrible at customer service. These papers belong to the people in the communities, and we need to make them think that. And hopefully they'll trust us a little bit more.
Well, thanks to both of you for the time this week, and good luck with the 2 companies.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Funding for New Mexico in Focus is provided by viewers like you.